She is Paola Estefania Tacacho. She was born in 1988 in the province of Salta, and she was the daughter of Mariela Tacacho. Her family and friends, those people who were closest to her, describe her as a woman very kind and intelligent, with a great sense of responsibility. She was a person who was always trying to improve. After finishing high school in 2007, at just 19 years old, she moved to the province of Tucumán to study at the National University of Tucumán. And while Tucumán is not terribly far from Salta, it is an effort and also means moving away from all those people she knew. All that effort anyway paid off, since after a few years she graduated as an English teacher. Paola managed to build her life in the province of Tucumán. She began working as an English teacher at different levels, from primary schools to tertiary institutes. She had students of all ages. Everyone who knew Paola, from her students to her co-workers, people who simply crossed paths with her at that time. They all agree that Paola was a very good teacher, very loved by her students in general. Parallel to her professional life, her personal life was also progressing. She rented her own apartment, was in a relationship with a girl named Ana. She really liked going out for walks and frequently visited her family in the province of Salta. All in all, Paola's life was good until 2014 or 2015. At that time, she was teaching at the Mark Twain Institute for the English Translation degree. In this course, there was a rather particular student. His name was Mauricio Gilberto Parada Parejas, a man of the same age as her. Parejas was a person with strange behavior. He stood out for certain attitudes. His classmates said that he always sat alone, that he didn't interact much with other people. And when it was time to do group work or something like that, he refused to share his details, like his cell phone number, because he didn't want others to have that information. Besides, it's not like they could know much more about this person because he used to miss classes quite often. Beyond this behavior, which others felt was somewhat atypical up until now, Parejas was simply a somewhat troublesome student, but nothing more. Everything changed when, after an exam, he got angry with his teacher, that is, with Paola, because she had given him a bad grade. This attracted a lot of attention, as the supposed bad grade that Paola had given him was nothing more or less than an 8.50 out of 10. That we can all agree is not really bad, it's more than a pass. So it sounded a bit strange that he would have gotten angry about that. Even so, as I tell you, Parejas got angry, and in fact, it didn't just stay there, he threatened her. After this incident, he stopped going to classes completely, although his classmates say that he sometimes prowled the areas around the institute during class hours. From there, a real ordeal began for Paola, which would culminate 5 years later in the worst way. Parejas began to harass and stalk Paola in various ways. He sent her messages, called her, sent her emails, basically any type of medium through which he could communicate with her. He used it. Sometimes they were more innocent messages, so to speak, some incoherent, like suddenly sending her memes or images, but on other occasions they were directly threatening messages. As you can imagine, in response to this type of behavior, Paola obviously tried to block him from all possible places. But Parejas kept using new methods to harass her. He created dozens of fake profiles to continue sending her messages. Paola went to the extreme of deleting all kinds of social networks to see if in some way this limited the man. But it wasn't like that. The harassment was not only virtual, but he began to hang around the places that Paola frequented, such as the schools where she taught or the gym she went to. And of course, he let her know he was close. His purpose was to scare her, to let her know he was stalking her, to let her know he was a danger to her. During all this time, moreover, Paola made complaints to the police because the harassment was so much that it happened. Precisely the social network blocks, message blocks, call blocks. She couldn't stop it in any other way, so she went to the police. She made the complaint about the harassment she was receiving. In total, she made about 22 more complaints, some of which were made by Paola's mother, of which only 14 were filed. That is, those are the ones that were taken into account. Unfortunately, despite all the complaints made, justice never did anything. In fact, only once in the year 2017. One of the complaints had the chance to go to trial, but the judge in charge of the case, Judge Juan Francisco Pisa, dismissed the couples with the argument that there was not enough evidence. And to not waste state resources, in an audio that emerged after the crime, Paola herself tells she accused the justice system of misconduct while going through tough times. Even accusing that every time she made a complaint shortly after she received messages or calls from couples, she believed it was because every time she made a complaint, she had to leave her details, like her phone number or email. So, when couples were notified of the complaint, somehow he got these details, like her phone number, to continue harassing her.
Every time I made a complaint to me, they asked for details, and sometimes I received calls from numbers. From here, obviously private, where I answered, and they stayed silent. And it was when all this was in full boiling process. He used to send my photos with messages, but now he doesn't since I'm not on social media anymore. It's to pass by, because obviously he passes near my house. He passes me by the gym, and I know that he shouldn't bother me. I know they are empty, nonsensical messages. I know that physically the guy's not going to do anything to me, but I can't help but go crazy when I see these things. When they reach me, they ruin my day.
You can hear in the audio how Paola herself lived in a state of constant alert, even though she still thought that her partner would never physically harm her. Unfortunately, she was wrong. It is under this context that we move on to the day of the events. It was October 20th, 2020. That night, and without any apparent reason, Parejas decided to take action after 5 years of harassment and intimidation against Paola. That night, he followed her to the gym where she trained. There, he waited patiently until she left the place and started her way home. Parejas started following her. This can be seen in the security cameras of some businesses. Finally, when he managed to get close enough, he treacherously attacked her by stabbing her in the back. Then he stabbed her 5 more times until she died. All of this happened in the heart of the city. The neighbors and merchants in the area were alerted by the victim's screams and came out immediately. Parejas tried to escape but was cornered by the local people who were trying to prevent him from escaping. Because of the screams, the situation, the place where they were, the first thing people thought was that he had tried to rob Paola, not that he had killed her. Cornered, and after committing this crime, Parejas decided with the same knife with which he had murdered Paola. In this case, the culprit took his own life, so there was no kind of judicial process. That is, from the beginning, there was no attempt to save Paola. And later, obviously, justice could not do anything either, because he killed himself to avoid facing the consequences of his actions. Some investigations were carried out, such as the search of this man's house, where they found 2 farewell letters. So it is understood that Parejas was determined to take his own life after committing the murder. Of these 2 letters, one was printed and had Parejas' signature, clarification, and document. The other was handwritten and very similar to the first. Apparently, it was some kind of draft he had made. I want to keep it short. I want all my belongings, movies, clothes, CDs, and so on. I want them to be burned. Nothing stays with anyone. I want to be cremated. Blame the dog, son of the one from Washington, Hector Navarro, and Judge Victor Manuel Ruges. The bastards who arrested me for doing nothing and then released me knowing I had schizophrenia with psychotic outbreaks. I'm not to blame for anything. I didn't ask or vote to be born. The blame is on the mother for being irresponsible and reckless in having children when she didn't have any, because she was already old. Will the story of all this typical garbage be rewritten thoughtlessly? It's the same old thing. It's an oath. I put a curse on the universe and say the worst is coming, so get ready. And I'm going to be there to laugh my ass off at everything. Get it on. The next card is handwritten and is a little harder to understand, but it basically says the same thing. Here, it's too obvious how much she blames her parents for her experience, existence, for everything that happened and what would happen. And she clarifies that she regrets nothing, says I never will, nor do I ask for forgiveness, never. In these letters, Parejas then explicitly states that she is not sorry for what she did. She even says that Paola deserved to be killed. She also absolves herself of all guilt and says that the real culprits are her relatives, especially her mother, for not stopping her. She also names some judges and prosecutors who did nothing to stop her, when it was evident, according to the killer himself, that he had psychiatric problems, like schizophrenia. All this that happened then, he could see it. According to the killer, his family could also see it. Paola saw it, his friends saw it, his relatives also saw it. The only ones who didn't seem to see the problem were the people in charge of dealing with these kinds of issues, like the judge who outright said there's no evidence and let a person be killed. Even though the case was very easy to prevent, or at least very easy to start doing something, even if it's one thing. Even today, Paola's family continues to demand justice, because they believe, and rightly so, that it was a crime that could have been prevented and that the authorities did nothing to prevent this from happening. Let's remember that Paola reported her partners more than 20 times, plus the times her mother also did. In the year 2021, the judge Juan Pisa, whom we have already mentioned and who had been responsible for dismissing the charges against the partners, was brought to political trial. In one of the many complaints he had received, the only one, in fact, that had reached a judicial instance. Perhaps if this had continued, Parejas would have been tried and imprisoned, and Paola's death could have been avoided. Pisa was dismissed from his position, accused of failing in his duty as a public servant. So far, he is the only one who faced consequences for Paola's case. Her family continues to demand answers from many other prosecutors who took Paola's complaints and never did anything about it. They also accuse Parejas' family of not stopping him, despite knowing about all the problems he had. It was even discovered that Parejas' brother worked for the government of the province of Tucumán, and perhaps because of this, he was able to easily evade the complaints he received. Although there is not much information on the subject yet, and his brother, Ronald Parejas, completely denies having been involved in anything to do with his brother. And so, without any conclusion, good to draw from all this at all is that we have reached the end of the video. Tell me what you think about this case and if you knew it. And surely, but surely, you must know some other similar story in which nobody seems to care that a person was in danger. Here are the Patreons and channel members. Thank you for supporting me through those means, and with nothing more to say. Here's a new video, here is a recommended video. You can subscribe by clicking on my face, and see you in another video. Goodbye.